What makes a design interesting? Is it texture, feel, color, pattern, the construction? When you go to a store and you pick out a sweater, why do you pick it out? For me, I'm mostly drawn to the colors first. And it has to be about the texture, and it has to feel right on my skin, and it has to go with my style. And that is why I like designing my own sweaters. I have a new project with my all-time favorite sponsor, Hobbii Yarn. They sent me this yarn and I have a new project to complete. We're going to start my next project together. This is the Highland Wool 100% wool yarn by the brand Hobbii. 50-gram ball with about 191 yards of yarn. And you knit it on 4mm needles or using a 4mm crochet hook. We are going to be knitting a sweater today. For the main construction of the sweater, I think I'm going to make it in a raglan style from the top down. I really like trying on my sweaters as I make them, so I try to avoid bottom up sweaters because I can't really try them on. So we're going to make it top down. I'm going to start by hand knitting the collar and then working on the yoke. And then when I can split for the arms and the main body, I'm going to attach it to my knitting machine and then do the stockinette stitch up until my design. And then I'll probably take it off the machine and do the color work by hand, or hear me out, I will make a punch card for my knitting machine and have the machine do the design, and then I'll add the details afterwards. We'll see how that goes. I'm not entirely sure that my standard gauge knitting machine is going to be the best option for that. I might do this with the mid gauge knitting machine. We'll see. I'll try the tension on both of them and make some swatches, but let's get started. Something I forgot to tell you is that this is going to be a Hobbii Plus pattern. So I'm going to write the pattern for the sweater that we're making today and tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. And it's just a sweater that I'm making. And then it will be available on Hobbii. And if you have Hobbii Plus, it will be available to you for free. If not, you can buy it and like 100% of the proceeds go to me. Pretty cool. I've been working with Hobbii Yarn for like 2 years now. The first dress I did with them was the Dragonflight Dreams dress for, I think, Spring Fling 2021. And that was the first time as a knitter and crochet content creator and pattern designer that I was ever gifted yarn to like make something and post about it and share my ideas and all of these things. And Hobbii has always supported me as a designer and a creator. They've always been willing to send me the yarn and the supplies that I need to make stuff. So this is the first time that I'm actually going to make the thing and then host the pattern on Hobbii's platform. My husband bought me a plant. Unprompted, my husband bought me a plant. I wound up a ball of this yarn and I am loving all of these like texture and color changes in here. More like a blue green and a yellow green spun together, and you can see all the individual pieces of that. It looks really nice. It's also very soft. I'm always a little bit hesitant to use 100% wool yarn just because I know my skin's very sensitive to a wool, but I read some really great reviews about this yarn and I'm very excited to use it. So I got a couple colors. The main body of the sweater is going to be green, and I got some accent colors here. Let's see all the colors together. So these are all of my beautiful accent colors. The yellow, the red, and the pink are going to be worked into the body of the sweater. The main sweater is going to be this really lovely green color, and then the white and the black are going to be the fun little animal details that I have. What animal is black and white and makes wool? A sheep. I worked on the sweater over the weekend, and this is probably, I'm gonna say like 12 hours of knitting, because most of it I've just been doing the math calculations, and that takes a really long time because I'm designing the pattern itself, which means I'm designing multiple sizes at the same time. So I write out all the mathematical calculations first, and then I'll test the pattern and see if my math is correct. And so far, it's working. And I think it's looking really good. The collar itself is very stretchy, which I'm definitely a fan of. The collar I have underneath this on my other jacket is actually a little bit tight. So if I loosen that and I get a better feel for this turtleneck, that feels a lot nicer. But now you can see the lump it created. Okay, here we go. And so far, I'm really liking the color green. I'm also really enjoying the colors here around the neck. I was looking at the footage of wearing this. I've gotten like a few more rows done. It's kind of all bunched up, but I don't like the collar. So I think I'm gonna change the pattern, like undo everything, which is hours and hours of work. And maybe I'll just start with like a new ball of yarn instead of undoing all of this so far. But also my math is like totally off. I printed out my spreadsheet and I should have 71 stitches for the front and for the back, and I should have 57 stitches for each of the sleeves. I'm at 53 stitches for each of the sleeves, but somehow I've gotten to 91 stitches on the front and the back, which is 20 more stitches each that I needed, which is 40 more stitches total. How did I gain 40 stitches that I wasn't planning on having? So I need to figure that out. And I think just rewriting everything is gonna solve that. So let's do it. Also, do you see how cute these pajamas are? Look at this. Look, they're little geese. They're gooses. The other thing is that I was looking at my original concept sketch for the sweater, and I realized now that I wasn't gonna make it a turtleneck. I was gonna make it like a quarter zip, but maybe with a button and not a zipper. I don't know. But that also changes the pattern entirely. So we're in Park City now, and I'm gonna find a place hopefully to pee and then knit. What are you gonna do?
I'm gonna go hiking.
Go hiking?
We'll see.
Okay. We did not find a coffee shop. That's okay. We're gonna head a little bit out of town and see what we can do there. But
you wanna buy a burger for like $30?
no, I don't want to buy a $30 burger.
What about like an $18 taco?
No.
There's street taco. No tacos, just taco.
Okay, so the whole I'm gonna go find a cozy place to knit in Park City did not work. So now we're sitting in a neighborhood and I'm finally knitting. So yay. Yay for me. And Phil's just sitting in the driver's seat right there. You can't see him. He's there. I've redone most of the sweater. So this was, I took this off the needles because I needed to harvest the needles. So this is where I was, right? This is where I was before. The neck, collar, too big, and then I really don't like the bunching back here. I think it would have been solved with a little more weight, right? So as you make the sweater, I just like popped my shoulder. I should have stretched first. Ow! Okay, that's obviously gonna be solved when you knit it out like that, but the collar, too tight. I have spent all of Thanksgiving weekend re-knitting this, and here is where we're at. So I'm just to the point now where I think I'm going to connect the zip this will be folded. And I changed the detailing on the sleeves. So instead of a ribbing, I'm actually doing a smocked 2x2 rib. And I think that is a nicer look. I kept the same short row shaping in the back with that half moon shape. And I think this is gonna work out a lot better. I'm a lot more comfortable with it. I think it's something that I'm gonna wear a lot more than just a plain turtleneck. I've tried a few different samples on my knitting machines. So this is my mid-gauge knitting machine. This is the LK150, and the other knitting machine that I have is the Singer 360 knitting machine. This one came off of the Singer 360 knitting machine, which is a standard gauge knitting machine. And you can see how small these stitches are. In each of these holes here, this is a different section gauge, this is a different one. And then I put the holes here so I can tell what the carriage tension is. So for this one, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, tension of 8, and then 9, and then 10, 11, 12, which was the largest that I had. And even this was too small to meet the gauge of my hand knit. And so I made a swatch on my mid-gauge knitting machine. You can see the difference here, how much larger these stitches are than these ones. And this is the same exact yarn. It's just knitting it with a different tension. So this came off the LK150 knitting machine. I've got a tension of 4, 5, 6, and then I went down to 3 just to see. I'm gonna put the yoke on the knitting machine. I've already split the yoke into 2. So I joined the armholes here, and I added on 4 stitches on each of the underarms, and then I split the yoke into 2. So I'll hang, I think I'm gonna do the back first. I'm gonna hang the back on the machine, take it off and see what happens. I could just finish hand knitting this, but I don't want to. So we're gonna use the knitting machine. I'm glad I put the lifeline in here because I knit this on the machine at a tension of 5, and I actually think that I need to change it to a tension of 6, because while I do get a similar stitches per inch, I'm not getting the rows per inch that I have on the top here. You can see how this is, well, messier because it's hand knit, but also larger stitches. So I think I need to rip all this back, change the tension to a 6, and then that is going to give me what I'm looking for. So I've been watching a YouTube video by Create with Wendy on how to do color changes on the LK150 without a color working carriage. So I don't have a ladybug carriage, I don't have like an intarsia carriage, and I honestly don't feel like buying one. And what Create with Wendy shows you how to do is put stitches on hold, knit a row, move those back, put the other stitches on hold, knit into the other color, and then go back and forth. So I'm working with 2 colors, but I have to manually do the color changes, and I think it's working out quite well. I'm liking it so far. I just have to hang the front panel on the machine and then decide how many sheep I want and in what area I want them to go, and then hopefully I don't mess it up. And this is how it's looking so far. Here's the back, looking good, and the front. We've got the collar, and then I'm gonna knit a few rows on the front to get it to maybe like 10 rows, and then see if that's where I want to put the sheep, and then see how many rows of sheep I want to do. There are a couple things I need to do before I can actually start knitting the front panel of my sweater. Number 1, I have to cast a lifeline into the front of the sweater, because if I mess up the front, I want to be able to rip it back. Number 2, I need to cake up the balls of yarn that I have, because you can only use caked or coned yarn on a knitting machine. You can't use it in the skein form because the tension gets all wonky. I also need to draw out my sheep pattern on the graph. I did, when I thought that I was going to use my Singer knitting machine before I figured out that the tension was too tight, I made a pattern that I could have used on my Singer knitting machine. It's obviously the tension's too tight, so I'm not going to use that, but I'm going to create a similar pattern in a graph notebook so that I can mark off every 2 times that I go by as 1 row, and then I can keep track of it. Because when I was doing my swatch, that was something I was really struggling with, was understanding which row I was actually on. And then I need to hang the sweater on the knitting machine, knit a couple rows, and then we can start finally with the pattern. I've just finished 12 rows from where I have my lifeline to where I'm at now for the front panel of my sweater, and I almost just made a very big mistake that I wouldn't have been able to undo very easily. So I have my sheep here, and I was going to start with the feet and then work my way up. But my sweater is upside down on my machine, and if I were to do that, all of my sheep would be upside down. So I actually have to knit them upside down first, which means this is row 1 and this is row 15. Okay, I did some math and I want 4 sheep across the front of my sweater. I have 96 stitches on the front of my sweater, and I want the sheep to be evenly spaced. And since each sheep is 16 stitches wide, that means that I have 64 stitches which are being used by the sheep pattern. That means I have 32 stitches remaining, and I have 4 sheep, which means I have 5 gaps in between the sheep because I have gap, sheep, gap, sheep, gap, sheep. So if I have 4 sheep, that means 3 of the spaces need to be equal, and then the end 2 pieces have to be equal to each other. So essentially, I'm going to have 7 stitches, a sheep, 6 stitches, a sheep, 6, a sheep, 6, a sheep, and then 7 on the end, and that gives me 96 stitches. I hope I explained that well. I have sheep! Oh my gosh, look at them! I'm so excited. The tension between the green body stitches and the sheep is a little bit off, but I think I can fix it like in post after I'm done with everything else. So I think that's good. Let me show you a little bit closer up. So here's the front side of the panel, and if I just flip this back over, here's what the back looks like. And instead of actually feeding the black and white yarns through the carriage and moving the carriage back and forth, I've actually just hand manipulated these stitches. So I move the needles out to the D position, and on my carriage I have this lever, the front lever, to 1 instead of 2, which means it's not going to knit needles in D position, so all the way forward. And then I hand manipulate those stitches to have the color changes. It took me like an hour to do these. I could probably do it in a little bit less than an hour now, just because I had to teach myself how to hand manipulate these, but I know how to do it now. I finished the front panel, and it's exactly how I pictured it. Oh, it feels so good when something turns out the way that you intended it to turn out. The front and the back are still separated, and I still have to weave in all of these ends and fix some of the tension issues, but that shouldn't be a problem at all. And then I need to seam up the sides, and then I need to do the ribbing on the bottom, and then I need to do the sleeves. So I still have a lot of work ahead, but so far I'm really liking how it's turning out. I've never knit something this complex before either, and I'm just really proud of myself at this point. It's done. Well, it's kind of done. I knit everything. I knit the sleeves. I finished the edging on the collar, but I have not blocked it yet, which is why it's like sitting really weird. Right, like the collar is supposed to fold over nicely, and it's just not doing that right now. So I need to block it, and I think that'll fix a lot of the collar. So I'm gonna block it and then see if I want to add a zipper. It's It's like January 15th now, by the way. We're that long in the process. But it's almost done. And then I just have to write the pattern. I've finished knitting the sweater. It's here. It's lovely and beautiful, and I have just spent the last 2 days editing and writing and perfecting the pattern. There's still a lot of work to be done, so I shall remain here until it is finished. And we've got the final reveal. So here is the finished sweater, all blocked and ready to be worn. I am so proud of myself for knitting this sweater over the past 3 months and designing the pattern for it. It was a lot of work, and if you make this pattern, I know it will be a lot of work for you too, but it's gonna be a well-loved knit. I absolutely love the sleeves. I love the smock detail. I love the open collar, the sheep, the colors. Literally everything about this screams at me that this is 100% me. It's all my creativity, and it's all I could have ever hoped for. And I truly hope that you love it too. I'll see you in my next video. Happy knitting!